What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Chuck Kohout coming to you live here with Always Be Closing, Power in the Creative Real Estate Club. Go ahead and smash that subscribe button for me, and don't forget to hit that little bell so every time we drop a new video you know about it. So I was asked to tell my first deal story, and it's a little weird because I don't really have a first deal story. I got one, then I got another one. I started working on a whole bunch at once, and they started closing one after another. And that's actually probably the only thing I took away from reading Donald Trump's first book, The Art of the Deal, which might be like 12 or 15 chapters. And what's absolutely miraculous about that book is every chapter chronicles one of these multi-million-dollar or billion-dollar deals, and amazingly enough, chronologically, they all overlap, and he's working on all of them at once. So I figured, hey, if it's good enough for a billionaire, I might as well start doing that myself. So I started my business in November of 2004, and I was having a lot of difficulty keeping up with the calls, the appointments, everything else, as I had a job. So I wrote my letter of resignation before I closed anything, and I just completely committed, and I convinced myself that if I can't do this with the same 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 52 weeks a year that everybody else has, I don't deserve to fucking live, because this is my job. So I literally convinced myself that I would off me if I couldn't live like this without a job and learn how to do this stuff, because I'd kind of already been doing it in another business, buying and selling stuff for somebody else, so why not real estate? I had no idea it was going to be this complicated. So the day after I quit my job, I woke up the next morning and I went on an appointment, and it was a condo in Patterson. I had no idea what the fuck I was doing. I went with a woman I was working with at the time who told me she knew what she was doing. She was going to mentor me. It turned out she had no clue what the hell she was doing. She brought a bunch of paperwork to buy properties in Florida. We sat down with sellers. We had them sign everything from purchase and sales agreements, deeds, everything else, and literally turned around and sold that property in probably about 60 days and cashed out on it. But the big problem with that particular deal, which was my first one, and there's some overlap because I got one closed quicker than that one, is that when I went to sell it, at the closing table, my buyer had gone to Countrywide and taken out a mortgage. I found out at the closing table that the deed that I had, and this is so far ago that lenders didn't even really check title work that thoroughly. We're talking 2004. We found out that my deed was not recordable and not in the New Jersey state format, so the buyer's lawyer started to panic. My lawyer turned white, which was really hard because he was a black guy. And he looked at me, and they started having a conversation. They went behind closed doors, and they came back, and they told me, Chuck, we think you've accidentally done something horrible here. You've gone and you've sold the property to somebody who's taken out a loan for about $180,000 to buy something you don't own. The repercussions for this are astronomical. I mean, we're talking jail time. However, myself and the buyer's lawyer both believe that your intentions were good. Whoever gave you this paperwork deserves death, and I don't talk to this person anymore. I don't want to take it that far, but let's just say they're out of my network. They then provided me with the right documentation, told me to go back to the seller, get the paperwork signed in the presence of a notary, which I did. Everybody was all on the same page and completely compliant. They signed off on everything. I brought it back to the closing table later that day, and everything was able to close, and I paid off one person's delinquent mortgage, bailed them out of foreclosure. They were incredibly happy. They actually had tears in their eyes, and I turned around and I took a single father and I sold him a place where he could live and own with his son, and he was so happy he was crying, and I'm sitting there going with like a $20,000 check in my hands going, I can't believe my job is real. And I had no idea about the massive fraud that I'd accidentally committed by listening to somebody who knew shit. And I mean, this is actually where I got the documentation that I use today that I'm turning over to you, because I don't want to put anybody else in a situation where they commit that kind of mistake. I'll admit right now, I got lucky, but I was that committed that I was actually thinking to myself, it would be better to be dead or in jail than to keep working for somebody else. I like to be an independent person. So while that transaction was going on, and I think it took about 60 days, a few days afterwards I went to the New Jersey Real Estate Investment Club, where I actually met Christopher Goodson for the first time, and I was handed a deal by a lawyer by the name of Mary Mullen, very nice young lady, and they were trying to figure it out. And it was given to me as an impossible short sale. Something that the bank wouldn't cooperate on, nobody could figure it out, they would not discount this loan. And after looking at the property and meeting with the sellers, and there was a lot of them, there was 5, and I had to get 5 different deeds signed with like every possible combination of the sellers because nobody was sure who owned what at the time, and it was an absolute train wreck. So I started looking at the numbers on the mortgage, and I started to do something that nobody in this investment club had done. I started to look at the values of the surrounding houses, and rather than trying to short sale this property with the bank, I did something absolutely revolutionary. I put a sign in the front yard, and my phone started to ring off the hook. And 2 days later, I had countless offers and not enough gas money to go to the house to actually accept one of these offers. So I made people come to me and cut a check for $1,000 to buy this particular property. It was on the doorsteps of foreclosure. We actually had to put the foreclosure off for a 3rd time, which I was told you could never do. You only got 2 extensions at the time, but I was working with a gentleman by the name of Ankit Dougal who helped me and did something called an emergent motion, which is a seldom used 3rd extension on a foreclosure. And we were able to get this particular deal done in 20 days. I picked up a check for 20 grand, which was insane. And I mean, that was like my shut up check. You know why they call it a shut up check? Because like all these people are telling you you can't do it. You get the check and you're just like, ha ha, shut up! I did it. And I mean, ever since that day, I never looked back. It was like the most life-changing thing I think I've been through in a very, very long time, possibly ever. And it was like, I am capable of this. All I have to do is just not quit, push through the pain barrier, and as long as I had nothing else to fall back on, and I mean, quitting my job was really just like the catalyst that set this all off. I had nothing to fall back on. I had to make it work, and it did. And by the end of my first year of business, I'd made something like $200,000, a little bit more, out of a bedroom in my parents' house. So that's my first deal story. It's kind of like 2 raveled together that overlap. Maybe we'll make you guys a flow chart somewhere down the road. I've got a couple other little weird first deal situations where there was many times I actually did try to buy a house with a mortgage, and I was lucky enough I fucked it up and didn't get the mortgage because I probably would have gone out of business if I did. And I mean, to give you guys an idea of how confused I was when I started, the very first seller that I actually sat down with wrote me a check to buy his house for $1,000 because I'm dyslexic and I was confused, and I thought that that's the way it was supposed to work. So I just confidently told him, you just needed to sign this purchase and sales agreement, and your house is a piece of shit. I'm going to need you to give me $1,000 to buy it. And he did. It's actually still in my phone today. Pretty amazing story. So I mean, it's been a ride. I got tons of deal stories that I can tell you guys. If you've enjoyed this, just smash the little like button, give us the thumbs up, let's hear about it in the comments, and we'll just keep chronicling a lot of this stuff as we go along, because believe it or not, I've been through thousands of deals. Well, at least 1,000. And most of the ones that I've seen wind up being pretty interesting stories. All the people that I work with in my office handle all the difficult stuff, and what we live by is all I handle is the impossible. My name's Chuck Kohout. If you need help, let's hear about it in the comments. Always be closing. Bye for now.